big brother Ace has an old saying that he's been passing around for years, and it's this: kids who fish don't rob banks. And I think he's got something there. I think he's onto something. When we were little kids growing up, our old granddad taught us how to fish, and that's him during the war, World War II, and that's Grandad with yours truly and Big Ace and Mick sitting on his lap there in about 1965. But that's our great grandpa. He was quite a fisherman too, from what I understand. There's both our great grandparents, but we grew up fishing, and that's just a bond that we had with our granddad. And he was not a warm and fuzzy kind of a guy necessarily, but man, we had some great times fishing, and we certainly have good memories, lifetime memories, and just some various shots of friends of ours. And that's our son and daughter on the left there. I think that's the first fish they ever caught. Georgie boy on the right when he was a young teenager. There's old Matthew and JT a few years ago fishing down there at Roaring River State Park. There's Tyler about 20 years ago on an Alaska trip we took with a big old king he caught. And there's cousin Duster Man with a huge flathead. There's our two oldest grandkids, and they're turning into quite the fishermen. I don't know if they like to fish or they'll have to go to Dairy Queen after, but I think they actually like both of them. Or as Granddad would have said, the Dairy Queen. Not Dairy Queen, the Dairy Queen. I like to keep a pack or two of these in my pack. If you run out of worms, crickets, can't get any, or just go and fish and spur of the moment for these panfish with these youngsters, it's always good to have. And then really all you need, I very rarely use snap swivels, but when you've got 4 or 5 grandkids at a time you're trying to keep up with, I put a snap swivel on there. I use those number 6 or number 8 hooks, and it's a pretty good system because they haven't yet learned how to hook these fish, in the lip and keep them from swallowing it. So I end up cutting the hook off, and so that allows me to get them back in action pretty quickly by just snapping one of those pre-rigged hooks on there and gets them going. And panfish are not overly particular. As long as you don't throw a big rock in there or whatever, if they're around and they're hungry, they're going to bite. So that snap swivel, and it's not going to bother them. But anyway, we went out. This is just good. One of probably my favorite fishing spot right now to take the grandkids because it's pretty easy to get to.
Good job.
And just out of Big Ace's backyard there, and off the dock, and the water. There's a gentle slope there. There's old Luke. You can tell. Look at the look on that boy's face. I don't know what it was he saw in the water, but he got a big kick out of it.
That fish almost big.
And it's nice to catch fish, and they get excited about it. Little Polly boy there, but they just like being out there and like being around it. So I took that cooler full of ice. We caught you can see mostly a batch of red ear, and there are not a ton of them, but we could have caught a lot more if I could have kept up with them. But it took me a while to get them re-rigged and back in the water. They were fascinated by those fish and asking a lot of questions, and so that was kind of intentional on my part to get them used to that. And I want to get them to where they're not afraid to take a fish off their line and that kind of thing. So it's a process with grandkids, particularly with young kids. It's a process teaching them to fish and getting them comfortable with it, all the various aspects of it. There toward the end of the night, Olivia hooked a huge, big old channel cat, and I didn't get it on. I had my camera turned off, but it was about the size I just held up there, and she was excited about that. It straightened her hook out, so she didn't land it, but she's excited. She's got a fish story to tell, and then the DQ afterwards, that's part of it.
Cut your fingers off, so don't get your hands anywhere near it, okay? It's called a splay knife. It is super sharp. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put that fillet knife right in here behind that gill.
He's teaching me how to cut fish.
And we're going to cut down to the back.
This was about 10 o'clock at night. To be honest, I really wasn't excited about cleaning a small mess of fish, but I thought, man, this would be a great opportunity to expose our granddaughter to the finer art of filleting fish. And it'd been a while since I'd filleted a mess of fish, and I know there'd be a lot of people say, man, you're wasting your time filleting those panfish. You're leaving some meat on the bone, and you're not getting a lot for your work and all that. But you know what? The good thing is it's my time. I can kind of utilize it how I want, and I even take the time on those rib cages there, on those bigger red ear, to go ahead and cut that little bit of meat off that's left on that rib cage. And so I was trying to teach Olivia just teach her, how about cleaning fish and respecting the fish and not wasting meat, and how to, about being safe. She wanted to jump right in there. She was ready to grab that knife and take off. If I'd let her, she would have, but she's not, I didn't feel quite comfortable with that. And she's a bulldozer, so she wouldn't have hesitated for a second to just take off on that darn thing, but on those fish. But she sure as heck real quickly got where she wasn't afraid to touch those darn things, even though they were a little bit slimy at that point of the night. And although they were cold, and that meat was just as white as it could be, and again, a lot of work. Next time we keep a mess of these sunfish and red ear and so forth, I'm going to probably just descale them and gut them and keep the fish together, and we'll deep fry them, and you get quite a bit more meat off. A lot more work, as you know, if you're a fisher person, but as long as you got the patience to look at that little fillet. That's not a very big fish, but man, some nice little fillets came off there, and tasty. I mean, those darn things are tasty. If you have never eaten fresh sunfish, red ear, brim, rock bass, what have you, you ought to. Had to keep reminding Libby to stay back, so I didn't end up skewering her with that fillet knife. I was extra careful. I don't think that would have happened even if she'd gotten up there close, but she was so curious about how a fish is made, and there's not too many kids in her age range that'll pick through a fish like that. It was a little biology lesson, and she got a kick out of it, as I really did too. But you can see there, my filleting skills. It's been a while since I'd filleted a mess of fish, as I mentioned earlier, but I just do not like leaving meat on a fish. I think the fish deserves to if it's going to give its life up for a meal, why, you ought to get as much meat off there as you can. But those some good-looking red ear they pulled out of there, and again, we could have probably caught 3 or 4 times what we had if I could have kept up with keeping worms on their hooks and keeping the hooks. I had to cut several off. Some of these fish swallowed the hook, and so I had to re-rig them. And anyway, but that was a real nice red ear there, and boy, they're good eating. All those sunfish, bluegill and so forth, they're all, in my estimation, real good eating. But that was not a huge one, pretty good size. I mean, over half a pound, I guess. And you can see the kind of fillets that came off that darn thing, and really, really tasty. Turned out that's the first time I've cleaned fish there on that particular locality, and turns out I think I got me a good fish cleaning spot right there. And when I was done, just hose the stuff off into the side yard there, and water it into the grass, and boom, you're done.
Why wouldn't the boys touch these? Papa, why wouldn't the boys touch these?
He grosses them out. But
Wait.
I told them they can't be real fishermen until they bait their own hook and take the fish off the line.
You need to tell me.
It just tickles me seeing her poke right in there. Anyway, so the next night we seasoned these up, sprayed them down with olive oil, stuck them on the grill, and we did what you should do after you do a mess of fish. We tried them. Kind of hard to tell a little bit with some of them whether they like it or not, but Polly boy there, I think this was his first fresh sunfish, and
Oh, do you like it?
that's I slowed that down. That's called the 5-year-old jump and run, which is a pretty good indication that he liked it. No, Budman there on the left, he tried it there, and
Isn't that good? It's spicy.
Yeah, pretty good.
I wasn't convinced about that, so I slowed that one down. Wanted to get a second look at it, a little instant replay. Turns out I was right. He wasn't overly enamored with it. In fact, he went over and got him made him up a big old bowl of Cheerios. So I guess he maybe didn't think it was awesome, but at least he didn't throw up. Man, we had a great time, and who knows, maybe one or two of these kids will grow up to be a world-class flathead fisherman like old cousin Duster Man.